The biting chill of the night seeps into the vast expanse of the customs inspection warehouse after hours, a cold that gnaws deeper than mere temperature. It finds the hollow spaces within you, Marcus, where old ghosts linger like the scent of brine and forgotten cargo. You stand amidst towering stacks of crated goods, their labels a jumble of foreign alphabets and cryptic codes, each box a sealed secret. Dust motes dance in the solitary shaft of moonlight slicing through a high window, illuminating the stillness, the profound quiet that has become your constant companion since the badge was stripped away. Your fingers trace the rough grain of a wooden crate, its surface scarred by journeys across oceans. It's a mindless gesture, a tether to the tangible world when your own existence feels increasingly diaphanous. The air is thick with the metallic tang of sea containers, the faint, sweet decay of distant spices, and something else, something indefinable, akin to the residue of countless untold stories, each item here a silent witness to a transit, an exchange. You breathe it in, this atmosphere of liminality, finding a strange comfort in its stark honesty. No pretense here, only the raw truth of things moving from one place to another, unburdened by judgment or past failures. You thought you were alone. The sound repeats, closer this time, the deliberate scrape of heavy boots on concrete, growing steadily louder, more insistent. Every muscle in your body tenses, a reflex honed by years on the street, years spent anticipating the unseen threat. Even now, stripped of authority, the instinct remains, a phantom limb of your former self. They move with an unsettling economy of motion, their presence an immediate disruption to your carefully constructed solitude. You don't recognize the face as they draw closer, but the suit, impeccably tailored even in this desolate setting, speaks volumes. This is not a random encounter. This is a deliberate intrusion. Marcus Thorne, the stranger's voice is low, resonant, a sound that seems to absorb the echoes rather than create them. It holds a peculiar weight, an authority that makes the air around you feel suddenly heavier. I trust you received the message. You offer no greeting, no concession. This one is different. They pause, letting the words hang in the cold air. It concerns a past injustice. A loose thread you left untied. The phrase strikes you like a physical blow. A loose thread. The words conjure images of the case that unraveled your life, the one that broke you. The investigative journalist. Dismissed as a random act of violence, a tragic footnote in the city's grim ledger. But you knew, even then, that something was wrong, a dissonant note in the official narrative that gnawed at you until it became an obsession. There are no loose threads. You say, the lie tasting bitter on your tongue. Only cases closed, rightly or wrongly. This one was closed wrongly, the stranger counters, their voice unwavering. And it's been reopened. By those who understand its true significance. You feel a flicker, a spark in the dead ash of your resolve. A long dormant hunger. Significance? You scoff, a dry, humorless sound. Last I checked, the official report declared it a robbery gone wrong. A lone opportunist. The official report was a fabrication, the stranger states, their tone devoid of emotion, a simple declaration of fact. A convenient narrative for inconvenient truths. The journalist was not merely brilliant, Marcus. They were dangerous. They had unearthed a connection, a web of influence reaching into the highest echelons of power. Your jaw tightens. The journalist. A name you haven't allowed yourself to speak in years, a memory you've tried to bury under layers of regret and alcohol. They had been close, too close, to something monumental. You'd been too late. Always too late. What connection, you press, the question escaping before you can stop it. The spark is growing, an unwelcome fire in your chest. The stranger steps closer, their gaze piercing. A politician, Marcus. One currently campaigning for the highest office. A politician. It sounds like the stuff of pulpy thrillers, but you know better. You've seen the way power warps and corrupts, the lengths people will go to protect their secrets. And why here, in this? 2. Because you were there at the beginning, the stranger replies, their eyes never leaving yours. You saw the cracks in the facade. You felt the wrongness of it, even when others chose to look away. And because, Marcus, you are the only one left who remembers the truth, or at least, the ghost of it. Bought. Broken. You know which category you fall into. This isn't an offer, Marcus, the stranger continues, sensing your internal struggle. It's a plea. A chance. The opportunity to correct a grave injustice, to reclaim something you lost. Their hand gestures subtly towards a crate marked fragile, as if the very idea is as delicate and easily shattered. The politician's campaign is gaining momentum. If they succeed, this conspiracy will be buried forever, along with the memory of the journalist. And the truth about what happened to you. The last words are a calculated strike, a direct hit on the raw nerve of your past. The truth about what happened to you. The disgrace, the public humiliation, the quiet ruin of your career. It all stemmed from that case, the one you couldn't let go, the one that others so conveniently dismissed. This isn't just about the journalist anymore. It's about redemption. It's about the phantom limb, aching to feel whole again. You look around the cavernous warehouse, the silent sentinels of stacked goods, the profound isolation. And this time, it promises not just answers, but a reckoning. The tension in the air is palpable, a silent question hanging between you and the stranger. Do you step back into the light, into the dangerous dance of justice and power, or do you remain here, forever a ghost among ghosts? The choice, you realize, has already been made. The fire is raging now. Inciting incident, the memory of those words, sharp as shards of glass, still pricks the tender landscape of your mind. They burrowed into the soft tissue of your resolve, igniting a familiar, bitter burn. That case. The one that fractured your world, scattering the pieces of your career across the cold, indifferent streets. You had tried to bury it, to let the dust settle over the ruins, but some graves refused to hold their dead. Now, a whisper of a chance. You feel the tremor of it, a vibration deep in your bones, as the offer settles. Redemption, they called it. But the alternative, the slow, quiet erosion of your spirit in the sterile confines of your self-imposed exile, feels like a slower, more agonizing death. A message, terse and coded, arrived on a burner phone, its screen glowing with an unnerving urgency. Tonight. Midnight. Look for the blue container, Bay 3. No sender, no pleasantries, just an imperative that sliced through your quiet evening like a siren's wail. It was the kind of communication that demanded an answer, even if that answer was only your reluctant presence. You arrive precisely as the city exhales its last breath of light, the sky a bruised canvas of deep purples and oranges. Bay 3. A solitary blue container, hulking and silent, stands like a sentry. Not a uniform, not an ally you recognize.
This is a private transaction, a clandestine exchange. A woman whose face remains obscured by the angle and the gloom holds a heavy-looking canvas bag. Imposture is coiled, watchful. Marcus Thorne, his voice is a low murmur, devoid of inflection. You came. It's not a question, but an observation, laced with a subtle challenge. You expected otherwise, you respond, your own voice rougher than you intended, the rust of disuse clinging to the edges. You step closer, allowing the scant light to catch the determined set of your jaw, the weariness etched around your eyes. She offers no further pleasantries. The package. Everything we have. It looks less like a package and more like a body bag. 4 secrets. A condition, no contact. No questions. You work alone, or you don't work at all. Her eyes, 2 points of light in the dimness, bore into yours, conveying a warning far older than her apparent years. This goes deeper than you know. Deeper than anyone knows. The air seems to thicken around you, charged with unseen currents. Inside, a chaotic tumble of files, notebooks, faded photographs, and a clunky, outdated laptop. The scent of old paper, a faint metallic tang, and something else, a hint of stale coffee and desperation, rises from the contents. You retrieve a thick file, its cover stained and dog-eared, case file, Ilara Vance, unclassified. Ilara Vance. The journalist. The name a phantom limb, aching with the memory of failure. You carry the bag to a quieter corner, near a stack of wooden crates, and settle onto an overturned bucket. The laptop is dead, its battery long since drained. But the paper files. They hum with a latent energy. The first few pages are the familiar police reports, the sterile language of officialdom dissecting a life into bullet points. A brutal, seemingly random attack. But then you find her notes. Ilara Vance's own meticulous, sprawling handwriting fills dozens of legal pads. Dates, names, cryptic abbreviations. She hadn't been reporting on petty crime. He had been digging deep. Her research sprawled from local corruption to national policy, touching on infrastructure contracts, campaign finance, and something she'd codenamed Project Chimera. Your fingers trace a particular entry, dated just days before her murder. Meeting with source, the architect, Thorne's failed Nexus case. Linked to Senator Caldwell's early campaign funding? Discrepancy in land acquisition for waterfront development. Your breath catches. Thorne's failed Nexus case. Your case. The one that destroyed you and Senator Caldwell. Now a presidential hopeful, his polished face plastered across every screen. The connections begin to coalesce, shimmering into an unsettling pattern. The waterfront development. Caldwell's campaign. And the journalist, digging into your past failure, seeing threads where others saw only isolated incidents. You flip through more pages, the tension coiling tighter in your gut. A series of blurred photographs, taken covertly. Another, a grainy shot of a document with a corporate logo you dimly recognize, Aegis Solutions. Not a name that appeared in the original police reports. Not a name you remembered from the official investigation. This wasn't a random act. It was precise. Calculated. And Ilara Vance wasn't just investigating a story, he was unraveling a conspiracy, one that brushed against the very politician now vying for the highest office.
and he had found a key in your past. The case they buried, the one that broke you, was not an isolated incident. It was a thread in a much larger, more sinister tapestry. The truth of your disgrace, the real reason for your downfall, might be hidden in these very pages, waiting for you to piece it back together.
You are no longer alone. You are connected.
The night bleeds into the industrial periphery, a canvas of bruised purples and bruised grays. Your headlights slice through the mist clinging to cracked asphalt, illuminating skeletal cranes and the hulking silhouettes of dormant vessels. You guide the sedan through the labyrinth of forgotten access roads, the engine a low growl against the vast silence. Its corrugated iron skin, rusted and pockmarked, reflects the pale glow of a distant security light like a blind, metallic eye. A chain-link fence, topped with loops of razor wire, offers a theatrical barrier, but you know its weaknesses, its forgotten gates. The door, heavy with disuse, groans a protest as you force it open. A symphony of creaks and groans accompanies your entry, each sound echoing in the cavernous space. Dust motes dance in the narrow shafts of moonlight that pierce the grimy skylights, illuminating stacked crates, forgotten pallets, and the spectral outlines of phantom cargo. The scent of stale cardboard, mildew, and something else, something metallic and acrid, clings to the air, a phantom memory of the blood that once soaked these very floorboards. You walk the perimeter, your boots scuffing on the concrete. You remember the pale, unblinking eyes, the precise, almost surgical wound. You knew better, even then. The Nexus case, they called it. The case that swallowed your career whole. Your gaze sweeps across the vast expanse, searching for anomalies, for the misplaced detail that the initial, hurried investigation missed. Your hands, calloused and precise, trace the rough edges of crates, probe the gaps between floorboards, feeling for anything out of place. You kneel, sweeping away layers of grime and forgotten detritus. It's a small, tarnished brass locket, half buried in a crack. Its surface, dulled by time and neglect, bears a distinct, intricately etched symbol, a stylized serpent entwined around an anchor. You recognize the symbol from an obscure text on maritime history the journalist had been poring over. With a precise click, you pry it open. Inside, nestled against the faint imprint of a long-lost photograph, is a minuscule fragment of paper, barely larger than a fingernail. On it, scrawled in a tight, precise hand, are 3 words, the weaver's thread. And below it, a single, almost imperceptible coordinate. You drive towards the docks, towards the ramshackle dwelling of the retired longshoreman, a man whose life was etched into the very planks of the piers, a man who saw everything but spoke of little. His small, weathered house, smelling of pipe tobacco and stale coffee, sits hunched against the wind. He opens the door a crack, his eyes, rheumy with age, narrowing at your presence. Thorne, he rasps, his voice like gravel tumbling down a chute. Thought you were a ghost. Or just gone for good. Just digging up old roots, old friend, you say, your voice calm, steady. The journalist. The one found in the warehouse. You remember. He nods slowly, his gaze flicking past your shoulder, as if expecting unwelcome company. Remember. Couldn't forget that mess. Bad business. Bad business that was swept under the rug, you press. Tell me what you remember. Anything out of place before. That night. He shuffles his feet, his worn slippers dragging on the linoleum. Folks around here, they don't talk much about it. Not anymore. Things changed after. A lot of new faces, new money. Old ways died. He pauses, his gaze locking with yours, a flicker of genuine fear in their depths. That journalist. They asked too many questions. About the new development, about who was buying up all the waterfront. Big money. Dangerous money. Who, you ask, your voice a low hum. He shakes his head, a single, emphatic gesture. Don't know names. Just talk. They said the journalist was close to something big. Something that would shake the whole city, and then gone. Best to let sleeping dogs lie, Thorne. Some dogs bite harder than you remember. The implied threat hangs in the air, thick and acrid. You see the genuine fear in his eyes, not for himself, but for what might follow your renewed interest. As you step back into the night, the retired longshoreman's words echo alongside the cryptic clue from the locket. The weaver's thread. A hidden coordinate. Powerful forces, silent and unseen, had orchestrated the journalist's demise and the subsequent burial of the truth. And now, they were stirring. The senator, the waterfront development, the Nexus case, the threads begin to tighten, forming a Gordian knot that you are now determined to untangle, no matter the cost. You are the player, the hunter, and perhaps, the hunted. The longshoreman's fear, a raw, unvarnished thing, clung to you like the damp river air. It was not a fear of shadows, but of something solid, something with teeth. The silence he spoke of, the one that had swallowed the journalist's case, was a deliberate choking, a hand pressed over a mouth until the struggle ceased. The night pressed in, a velvet curtain drawn across the city stage, but you felt no peace in its embrace. It was a hulking, skeletal structure near the docks, a place where forgotten cargo gathered dust and memories often found a quiet corner to unfold. Years ago, after the badge was stripped, you'd carved out a small, unofficial sanctuary here, a space for the files that refused to be closed, the leads that wouldn't die. The heavy steel door groaned in protest as you slid your key into its ancient lock, the sound echoing through the cavernous space. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of aged paper, salt, and disuse. Your makeshift desk, a battered wooden workbench, waited for you, littered with the ghosts of investigations past. You spread the journalist's sparse notes across the grimy surface, alongside the digital files you'd painstakingly recovered. The journalist had been meticulous, a spider weaving a web of connections. You saw references to shell corporations, offshore accounts, and a recurring name, Aegis Solutions. A vague memory stirred. Aegis Solutions, a global consulting firm, had been in the news lately, often lauded for its innovative infrastructure projects and its generous contributions to political campaigns. A tremor of recognition ran through you. You pulled up news articles on your tablet, cross-referencing names and dates. The politician, the one now running for the highest office, had recently secured a massive infrastructure bill. And who was the primary beneficiary, the chief consultant, the architect behind the proposed grand vision? Aegis Solutions. The journalist wasn't just investigating a politician, they were dissecting the anatomy of a powerful alliance, a symbiotic relationship between political ambition and corporate might. You scanned further, deeper into the journalist's encrypted files. The journalist had stumbled upon the puppet master, the entity pulling the strings from the elite's highest echelons. Their murder wasn't random, it was a silencing, a desperate act to protect a secret that could unravel a carefully constructed empire. A subtle shift in the air, a faint metallic tang, pricked at your senses. The warehouse, once your sanctuary, suddenly felt like a cage. You froze, your breath catching in your throat, every instinct screaming danger. The floorboards, usually silent beneath your weight, had given a faint, almost imperceptible creak from the far end of the vast space. You hadn't heard the outer door open again. You pressed yourself against the workbench, your eyes straining to discern any detail. There was no sound, no heavy footsteps, only the silent glide of someone who knew how to move unseen, unheard. Not a gun, you realized with a jolt, but something long and thin, designed for close, silent work. A shiv. This wasn't an intimidation, it was an elimination. You didn't wait. Years of instinct took over. You shoved the workbench forward with a grunt, sending it scraping across the concrete floor, creating a sudden, jarring noise. In that split second, you launched yourself sideways, scrambling over a low stack of boxes, your foot catching on a discarded tarp. You hit the ground hard, the impact jarring your teeth, but you were moving, putting distance between yourself and the silent hunter. You scrambled to your feet, your eyes darting for an exit, for anything that could serve as a shield or a weapon. It wasn't rushing, not panicking. It was methodical, confident. Your mind raced, piecing together the layout, remembering the secondary exit, a narrow service door that opened onto a deserted alley. You moved, a phantom in the gloom, weaving through the maze of cargo, your movements silent, honed by years of late-night surveillance and desperate escapes. You heard the subtle shift of air behind you, felt the brush of displaced dust. They were close. Too close. Bursting through a gap between two containers, you saw it, the service door, a sliver of weak moonlight outlining its frame. You lunged, fumbling for the cold metal bar, your fingers slick with sweat. The door gave way with a protesting squeal, revealing the grimy alleyway. You didn't look back, didn't hesitate. They knew. They knew you were digging. The longshoreman's words echoed, no longer a warning but a prophecy fulfilled. The game had just become deadly. The cold, a damp shroud from the river, seeps into your bones, mirroring the chill of the longshoreman's fear. Stacked containers, like forgotten titans, cast long, skeletal shadows under the mercury lamps, their painted numbers a silent, cryptic language. The air tastes of brine, diesel, and forgotten secrets. You seek the overlooked, the discarded scrap of paper, the anomaly in the meticulously mundane. Your flashlight beam cuts through the gloom, a searching finger tracing dust-laden surfaces, illuminating faded labels and rusted hinges. You are not just looking for a clue, you are looking for the precise point where the current of the river turned, where the journalist's pursuit veered into the lethal undertow. Deep within a forgotten aisle, behind a precarious stack of empty wooden crates marked for disposal, you find it, a loose leaf from an old manifest log, tucked haphazardly, as if someone intended to discard it but was interrupted. The paper, brittle with age, crackles as you carefully unfold it. It details a shipment from years ago, a consignment of industrial components for a shell company, long dissolved. It is the autumn of your downfall. The exact week your investigation into a network of illicit shipments, a case you believed was leading to something monumental, was abruptly and inexplicably shut down. The case that ultimately cost you your badge, your name, Marcus Thorne, stripped bare. You remember the pressure, the veiled threats from a superior, the sudden stonewalling from within your own precinct. The official explanation had been lack of evidence, a convenient lie that had always chafed. Your gaze snaps to the recipient company listed, Orion Logistics.
Orion Logistics.
You had flagged them, years ago, as a potential front. He had dismissed your suspicions as overzealous, a rookie's hunger for a grand conspiracy where none existed.
He had even subtly steered you away, suggesting other, more promising leads.
You had trusted him, a blind, unshakable faith in shared purpose. Now, the connection crystallizes with brutal clarity. The journalist, years after your own aborted inquiry, had been probing Orion Logistics. The industrial components listed on the manifest, now you realize, were a standard cover for something far more valuable, far more dangerous. You recall the coded language you'd been learning to decipher back then, the subtle markers that indicated illicit cargo. The journalist had stumbled upon the very same thread, the one you had been forced to drop, the one that had been carefully swept under the rug of your disgrace.
It's not just a professional overlap, it's a betrayal.
Someone you trusted, someone who walked the same beat, shared the same precinct coffee, knew that Orion Logistics was a dead end for a reason.
Knew that your investigation was being deliberately sabotaged. Knew that the journalist was walking into the same trap, years later, and said nothing. The face of your former partner flashes in your mind's eye, his earnest expressions, his quiet reassurances. Was it complicity, a quiet acceptance of orders from above? Or something more insidious, a deliberate act of misdirection, a calculated betrayal that paved the way for your downfall and left the journalist vulnerable? The thought twists in your gut, a poisoned blade. You clench the manifest, the brittle paper threatening to tear. And one of those hands, you now realize with a sickening certainty, belonged to someone you once called a friend. The game has changed, Marcus. It's no longer just about solving a murder, it's about confronting a ghost from your past, a phantom of betrayal that has haunted your steps, now revealed as flesh and blood. Stacked containers, like forgotten titans, cast long, skeletal shadows, stretching and twisting with the erratic swing of a distant security light. Your breath plumes in the frigid air, each exhalation a brief, visible plea in the silent vastness. The longshoreman, a man whose face is a roadmap of hard labor and weathered anxieties, shrinks deeper into the collar of his thick jacket. Just cargo. You step closer, the scuff of your boots echoing too loudly. Your gaze locks onto his, unwavering. The journalist didn't stumble into a random street crime. He was close to something here. Something you saw. Something that still has its hooks in you. He shakes his head, a desperate denial. They'll know. Like ghosts in the wire. Ghosts leave traces, you counter, your voice gaining a subtle edge. And you, my friend, are a living witness. Tell me what you saw. What was unusual about the shipments? He mutters, barely audible. Always after midnight. Always to Bay 7. Not for inspection. Never. A private vehicle. Not marked. The driver never showed his face. But the man who met him. He talked to the big boss. The big boss, you press, your heart quickening its rhythm. This is it. The thread. The head of operations here, the longshoreman clarifies, his voice dropping further. Always with a briefcase. Always exchanging something. Papers, sometimes. And the names. The names they spoke. I overheard them once. A name I heard on the radio, on the news. The politician. A name. A direct link.
The air thickens, charged with the weight of the revelation.
What about the containers, you ask, your gaze sweeping towards Bay 7. Anything specific? He hesitates, then points a trembling finger. The one near the back. Old, rusty. Says archived textiles on it. But it never moves. Not in years. But they always went to it. The head of operations, the driver. Always there. You move, a silent predator, towards Bay 7.
The longshoreman's fear, a palpable wave, washes over you, but it only fuels your resolve.
You reach the designated container. The padlock is ancient, rusted solid.
You retrieve a set of heavy-duty bolt cutters from your bag, the steel jaws gleaming in the scant light. With a grunt, you snap the corroded shackle. You pull out your compact tactical flashlight, its beam piercing the gloom. But something feels off. Too neatly stacked. Too uniform. You run your hand over the surface of one crate. The wood feels newer than its weathered exterior suggests. A false front. With a pry bar, you attack the side of a crate. Not textiles. Inside, nestled amongst layers of foam, is a small, heavy-duty external hard drive. It hums faintly, a silent promise of secrets. You retrieve it, your fingers brushing against the cool metal. The crucial piece. Back in the relative open, away from the dust, you connect the drive to your portable, encrypted reader. The screen flickers to life, displaying a directory. Folders titled with dates and cryptic codes. You select the most recent one. Documents, spreadsheets, encrypted messages. The first document you open is a ledger. It details massive, untraceable financial transactions flowing through a network of shell corporations. The sums are staggering. Your eyes scan the names, the dates, the beneficiaries. The journalist's name appears, too, in a separate section, linked to ongoing intelligence gathering and mitigation strategies. The second file, a decrypted communication log, confirms the horrifying truth. A location, the very street corner where the journalist was found. Not a random act. A precise, calculated elimination. Your breath hitches. This is a living, breathing monster, its tendrils wrapped around the throat of the system. The evidence in your hands is a fuse, waiting to be lit. You know, with a clarity that cuts through years of self-doubt, that this is the truth you've been searching for. The redemption you craved. The longshoreman, still shivering, watches you. He sees the change in your posture, the grim set of your jaw. He knows, without a word, that the line has been crossed. You look at the hard drive, then back at the longshoreman. They're not just ghosts, you say, your voice low and resolute. They're flesh and blood. A commitment forged in the icy grip of truth. You will see this through, Marcus. To the bitter end. Whatever the cost. Now, the quiet hum of distant city life, usually a comfort, prickles your skin. You stand amidst the stacked crates, the scent of imported wood and stale coffee clinging to the air, the cold still gnawing at your fingers. You have committed, Marcus Thorne. To the bitter end. A faint click, too precise to be the natural settling of the old structure,
shatters the stillness. Your head snaps up. The hair on your arms rises before the sound fully registers. You flatten yourself against a towering stack of crates marked fragile, your breath catching in your throat. A beam of light, thin and sharp, slices through the gloom from an unseen source. It dances across the corrugated iron walls, a predator's eye searching. They know. Your movements, your questions, your very presence here, have been observed. They are no longer merely reactive, they are hunting. You move with the predatory grace of a cat, weaving through the labyrinth of containers. Each shadow offers a momentary reprieve, each creak of the floorboards under your worn boots a potential betrayal. You hear the soft thud of a landing, followed by the measured steps of more than one individual. They are inside. The warehouse, once your clandestine base, is now a trap. A voice, low and guttural, echoes. Thorne. We know you're here. These aren't just muscle, they are professionals. You remember the small service exit, often overlooked, near the rear loading docks. It's a gamble, but staying here means certain capture. A shout erupts behind you, followed by the clatter of dropped equipment. They are close. You burst through the service door, the night air hitting your face like a slap. You don't stop. The city becomes your accomplice, its noise and chaos a cloak. You duck into a narrow passageway between two brick buildings, the smell of damp refuse and exhaust fumes thick in the air. Footsteps pound behind you, closer now. They have seen you. You are a fugitive. Your fingers fumble for your burner phone as you run, dialing the only number you can trust. I told you this was bigger than you could imagine. The colleague's voice drops, urgency replacing the annoyance. Listen. My contact, the one who fed us the initial tip about the journalist's files, he just sent me something. A coded message. It's about Project Cerberus. Says it's the key. And he warned me to tell you, the politicians' campaign is merely the veil. They're buying up shell companies, funneling money. Even as you weave through a bustling late-night market, the shouts of vendors and the scent of fried food temporarily masking your presence. Project Cerberus. Aegis Group. A paramilitary contractor. It clicks into place, a horrifying mosaic of ambition and ruthlessness. The roar of an approaching train fills the tunnel, a temporary shield against the world. I need a place to lie low. And a way to decode this Project Cerberus. Go to the old abandoned factory on the industrial outskirts, the colleague instructs, his voice now lower, more conspiratorial. The one near the old docks. There's a hidden compartment in the supervisor's office, under a loose floorboard. I'll leave you a data chip there. It has everything I've gathered on Aegis Group and a decryption key for Cerberus. My contact. He's gone silent after sending the message. Be careful, Marcus. They're not just trying to stop you anymore. They're trying to erase you. The line goes dead. You board the train, finding a seat in the nearly empty carriage, your reflection in the window showing a grim, resolute stranger. The city lights blur past, each flash a reminder of the vast, intricate web you've stumbled into. The data chip, the abandoned factory, Project Cerberus. The pieces are scattered, but the framework of the conspiracy is now terrifyingly clear. You grasp the enormity of what you are up against, the full, crushing weight of it. You have a direction. You have a lead. And
you will follow it, Marcus, into the belly of the beast, whatever the cost. The train's metallic groan fades into the city's hum, leaving you on the platform, your breath misting in the cool night air. Each step on the cracked pavement is a deliberate choice, leading you away from the blinding streetlights, deeper into the industrial hush. The air here tastes of salt and diesel, a familiar tang that stings your nostrils and sharpens your resolve. You approach the perimeter fence, its rusted chain links singing a low, mournful tune in the breeze. A single, flickering security light casts long, dancing shadows, making the corrugated iron walls of the warehouse ripple like dark water. Your gaze sweeps over the scene, a practiced dance of observation. No immediate threats, no glint of hidden eyes. Just the vast, silent structure, a tomb of forgotten goods and, you suspect, buried truths. A hidden access point, one you recalled from an old, forgotten case file, becomes your target. You move with the silent grace of a predator, your fingers tracing the rough concrete, feeling for the seam, the weakness. The lock, a relic of a bygone era, yields with a quiet click, a tiny victory in the oppressive silence. You slip inside, the heavy door sighing shut behind you, plunging you into an inky blackness that swallows all sound. The air inside is thick with the scent of dust, stale cardboard, and something metallic, a faint echo of the machinery that once roared to life within these walls. Your flashlight beam cuts a narrow path through the gloom, illuminating towering stacks of crates, their labels faded and illegible. This place, once a bustling artery of commerce, now feels like a forgotten heart, its pulse stilled. You navigate the maze, your internal compass guiding you towards the section hinted at in the journalist's cryptic notes, the ones you meticulously pieced together from fragments. A specific pallet number, a coded date. The journalist had been looking for something here, something that connected the politician's rising star to the shadowy network. You knew it wasn't just about money, it was about influence, about leveraging illicit trade to build an empire of control. The labels are generic, innocuous, industrial parts. But your gut, that old, reliable companion, screams a warning. You pry open one of the crates. A shiver runs down your spine. This wasn't just a simple smuggling operation, it was an information conduit, a digital pipeline for secrets. You find the specific drive, marked with a tiny, almost invisible symbol that matches a recurring motif in the journalist's last articles, a stylized serpent. Plugging it into your portable reader, the screen flickers to life, displaying a cascade of encrypted files. Your fingers fly across the keys, employing the decryption protocols you'd spent years honing. The tension in the warehouse thickens, pressing down on you. Every second feels like an eternity, every faint creak of the building like a footstep behind you. The files unlock, revealing a meticulously organized ledger. Not of money, but of favors, of leveraged information, of political assassinations disguised as accidents. You scroll through, your eyes scanning names, dates, locations. The journalist wasn't killed for what they knew, but for who they were about to expose through this very data. The politician's name appears repeatedly, not as a direct perpetrator, but as a beneficiary, a key player in the network's expansion. There are encrypted communications, veiled instructions, outlining how the journalist's investigation was to be neutralized. And then, the ultimate reveal, a series of coded messages directly linking the architect, the mastermind you've hunted for so long, to the entire operation. The architect wasn't just pulling strings, they were weaving the entire web, from the highest echelons of power down to the grimy confines of this warehouse. You have it.
Undeniable proof. A digital ledger of corruption, a blueprint of a clandestine empire. This isn't just a smoking gun, it's an entire armory. With the data secured, you make a decision.
There's no turning back, no subtle play left. You have to force their hand. You retrieve your burner phone, compose a message, simple and direct, to a number you'd painstakingly extracted from the encrypted files, a direct line to the politician.
I have the serpent's ledger.
The truth dies with me, or it sees the light of day. Your choice.
Midnight. The old Docklands. You know it's a trap. Every fiber of your being screams it.
But it's a trap you're walking into with open eyes, a calculated risk. You are not the disgraced detective anymore, you are Marcus Thorne, a man with nothing left to lose but the truth itself.
The message sends a silent ripple across the city's unseen currents.
You replace the data drives, resecure the crate, leaving no trace of your presence.
The game is set. The final act is about to begin.
The message, a digital whisper of coordinates and a time, drew you here. It was a lure, a spider's silk thread pulling you into a web you had helped spin. The air, thick with the scent of brine and distant diesel, clung to your coat as you stepped from the slick asphalt. Above, a sliver of moon wrestled with the urban glow, casting long, skeletal shadows of cranes across the corrugated iron skin of the building. You pushed it wider, the groan of rusted hinges echoing through the cavernous space.
Inside, the silence was a living thing, pressing against your eardrums.
Stacks of crates, reaching like silent sentinels to the lofty ceiling, formed a labyrinth of potential ambushes. The air here was cool, metallic, carrying faint traces of exotic spices and forgotten cargo. Dust motes danced in the anemic light filtering from a few high windows, caught in the beam of your small torch. Marcus Thorne, a voice, smooth as polished stone, cut through the quiet. It resonated from the heart of the warehouse, bouncing off the stacked containers. You pivoted, your torch beam sweeping, finding the source. There, amidst a clearing of empty pallets, stood a figure.
Tall, impeccably dressed, even in this industrial graveyard.
This was the executive, the one whose name whispered in the hushed tones of the powerful, the one who moved the pieces on the board.
You came. The executive observed, a faint smile playing on their lips, a predator assessing its prey.
Predictable. You knew I would, you countered, your voice steady despite the tremor in your gut.
You needed me too. A necessary convergence, perhaps.
You saw them then, just at the periphery, the subtle shifts in the gloom, the glint of something metallic.
Their presence solidified the threat, turning the abstract into the visceral.
The journalist, you began, your voice cutting through the tension, they weren't just a random victim, were they?
Not some street mugging gone wrong.
That was the lie you fed everyone, the convenient narrative. But the truth, the real truth, was far more intricate, far more insidious. The executive's smile thinned. You always did have a flair for the dramatic, Thorne.
Get to the point.
The journalist was digging, you pressed on, ignoring the enforcers who now flanked the executive, their stances predatory.
Not into the politician's public life, but into the hidden currents, the deep pockets funding his rise. You held your ground.
You saw the journalist as a threat, you continued, your words like stones dropped into a still pond, creating ripples of undeniable fact. They had proof, not just speculation, but hard evidence linking the politician directly to your organization's slush funds.
Evidence that would have crippled his campaign, ruined his career. The journalist had a key. They were meticulous. They even had recordings, conversations with a low-level operative who confessed to being part of the money laundering scheme. That operative, by the way, mysteriously vanished a week after the journalist's murder. You watched the executive's jaw clench. Fanciful tales. Not tales. Facts. The journalist was lured to that abandoned factory, not for an interview, but for a meeting with someone they trusted, someone who then betrayed them. You orchestrated it. The politician, initially oblivious, became complicit the moment he learned the truth and chose to protect his campaign, to protect you, rather than seek justice. Suddenly, the executives snapped their fingers. Enough. Your theatrics are tiresome. The enforcers moved. The one on the left lunged first, a blur of motion, aiming a heavy blow at your head. You reacted, years of instinct overriding the rust of disuse. You ducked, the fist whistling past your ear, the force of it stirring your hair. The second enforcer, quicker, more precise, closed the distance. You felt a searing pain as something hard connected with your ribs. You gasped, the breath knocked from your lungs, but you used the momentum, twisting away, grabbing a discarded length of pipe from the floor. They left a trail, a breadcrumb path for anyone determined enough to follow it. You swung the pipe, a wild, desperate arc, catching the second enforcer's arm. They grunted, dropping something small and metallic that clattered across the concrete. Your eyes darted to it, a small recording device. You knew then. This was not just about silencing you, it was about framing you, perhaps even capturing your confession to a crime you didn't commit. You were outmatched, outnumbered, but a strange clarity settled over you. This was it. The culmination. You had to make this count. The politician's grand vision, you spat, dodging another attack, built on a foundation of lies and blood. And you were the architect of that rot. The journalist knew it. And now, so do I. And soon, the world will too. You had sent a message before you arrived, a contingency. A final act of desperation, a beacon into the digital ether. If you didn't return, if you didn't check in, then the truth, the carefully compiled dossier you had created, would be released. It was a gamble, a desperate throw of the dice, but it was your only play. No one believes a disgraced detective. Maybe not, you conceded, a grim smile touching your lips as you parried another strike, the pipe ringing against the enforcer's arm. But they'll believe the evidence. And when it surfaces, when the journalist's legacy finally speaks, your carefully constructed empire will crumble. And you will be left to face the ruins. The fight intensified, a desperate ballet of survival amidst the silent cargo. You knew you couldn't win this brawl outright, but you had already won the war of information. You gasped, air tearing at your lungs, each ragged breath a testament to the brutal ballet just concluded. A searing pain blossoms in your ribs, a vicious bloom beneath your skin, but the figure lies still, prone and defeated, a dark stain spreading on the concrete beneath his head. Your vision swims, a kaleidoscope of effort and agony, yet the data stick, clutched tight in your bloodied hand, feels solid, undeniably real. This is it. The proof. The culmination. You stumble, leaning against a towering pallet of imported machinery,
the metal cold and unyielding against your burning cheek. Your phone, miraculously intact, shows the red recording light still blinking, a persistent pulse in the gloom. The enforcer's raspy confession, extracted through sheer desperation and the desperate promise of a swifter end to the brawl, is captured, a digital echo of a broken man's truth. With a thumb that trembles, you send the file, a raw burst of data, to the anonymous email address you prepared, to the journalist contact you cultivated, to anyone who might listen. A digital wildfire, now burning, its tendrils reaching out to ignite the slumbering world. Blue and red strobes begin to paint the interior of the warehouse through the grimy windows, a silent disco of emergency. The heavy door slides open with a groan, a mechanical sigh, revealing the stark silhouettes of uniformed officers, weapons drawn, flashlights cutting through the gloom like hungry blades. Behind them, the familiar, weary face of the detective appears, his gaze sharp, sweeping the chaotic scene, his eyes lingering on the unconscious enforcer, then on you. Thorne, the detective's voice is gravel, laced with a disbelief that slowly gives way to something unreadable. You push yourself away from the pallet, the data stick held aloft, a flag of triumphant pain, a testament to the night's relentless grind. It's done, you rasp, your throat raw, each syllable a struggle against the dryness. You point to the unconscious enforcer, a silent accusation. He talked. The politician, the organization, the journalist's murder. All of it. The detective approaches cautiously, his eyes scrutinizing the enforcer's still form, then yours, searching for a lie, finding only exhaustion. He takes the data stick, his fingers brushing yours, a fleeting, almost imperceptible spark of something unreadable passing between you, respect, perhaps, or merely the grim acknowledgement of shared burden. You are moved to a small, sterile office within the warehouse, a temporary processing station, the air thick with the smell of old paper and stale coffee. On the tablet screen, a news channel logo flashes, a beacon of urgency. Your name isn't mentioned, not yet, but the ripples are undeniable, spreading outward, touching every corner of the sleeping city. You watch the words scroll across the screen, the anchor's voice a distant, disembodied hum. The immense weight of it settles, not with the expected euphoria of triumph, but with a profound, bone-deep ache. The years of quiet shame, the gnawing regret that had eaten away at your soul, the ghost of the journalist you couldn't save, they don't vanish in a sudden, blinding light. Instead, they recede, like a tide drawing back from the shore, replaced by a fragile, tentative sense of purpose fulfilled. Redemption, you realize, isn't a sudden, glorious sunrise, but a slow, arduous climb, leaving scars in its wake. The cost has been immense, your badge, your reputation, the fragile peace of mind you once possessed. But the truth, finally, breathes. It lives. The detective leaves, his footsteps echoing down the sterile corridor, presumably to coordinate further action, to navigate the political maelstrom you have unleashed. You are left alone, save for the relentless hum of the fluorescent lights and the distant, muffled chatter of officers. The politician's name will soon be dragged through the mud, their carefully constructed facade crumbling. But their roots run deep, entangled in the very fabric of power. This, you know, is merely the first tremor. You open your eyes, a new resolve hardening your gaze, a quiet fire burning in their depths. The path forward is still fraught with unseen dangers, but you have found your footing. The game has changed. Your ribs scream with each shallow inhale, a sharp, insistent chorus against the dull throb in your skull. The enforcer lies sprawled amidst a toppled pyramid of crated electronics, an inert mass of muscle and menace. Silence, thick and absolute, descends, broken only by the ragged symphony of your own breathing. You push yourself upright, a groan escaping your lips, the concrete floor a brutal ally against your protesting muscles. Your vision blurs for a moment, then sharpens, focusing on the glint of metal near the fallen figure, a small, encrypted data chip, dislodged from his person during the struggle. A single, crucial piece. You reach for it, fingers clumsy, but the smooth, cool plastic settles in your palm, a fragile victory. Footsteps echo, distant at first, then closer, purposeful. Not the heavy, predatory tread of the enforcer, but the measured cadence of authority. A beam of light slices through the gloom, momentarily blinding you, then dips. Marcus? The voice is gruff, familiar. The detective, his silhouette framed by the harsh glare of a tactical flashlight, emerges from the labyrinth of stacked crates. Behind him, other figures, uniformed, spread out, their own lights cutting through the cavernous space. He's contained, you rasp, the words a sandpaper scrape in your throat. You gesture weakly towards the enforcer. The detective kneels beside you, his gaze sweeping over your bruised face, the blood matting your hair, then to the unconscious figure. Looks like you had a busy night, Thorne. There's a grudging respect in his tone, a shift from the suspicion that had dogged your every step. He spots the data chip in your hand. What's that? You offer it to him. His. It's everything. The politician. The organization. The journalist. Your voice cracks, the last word a whisper, heavy with the weight of years. He takes the chip, his brow furrowed in concentration. We found the main server room you mentioned. It was quite the operation. Years of data. Shell companies, illicit transfers, influence peddling, and files. So many files. He pauses, looking at you, a flicker of something akin to awe in his eyes. Eleanor Vance's case. It's all there. Her investigation into the politician, how she got too close to bury it. Eleanor. You had failed her then, dismissed her work, believed the official narrative. The uniformed officers move efficiently, a ballet of flashlights and hushed commands. The enforcer is secured, the warehouse lights flicker on, revealing the extent of the chaos, overturned crates, scattered manifests, the lingering scent of ozone and adrenaline. A medic approaches, gentle hands prodding your ribs, shining a penlight in your eyes. You wave him off, a weary shake of your head. The physical pain is secondary now. The politician's campaign manager has already been taken in, the detective informs you, his voice lower now, almost confidential. He tried to flee, but we had the warrants. The politician himself. It's going to be a long, messy fight. They're powerful. But with this, he taps the data chip, they won't be able to deny it all. Not this time. You nod slowly, the weight of the revelation settling, not crushing, but grounding. It wasn't a clean sweep. But a significant blow had been struck. It's no longer a battlefield, but a crime scene, a place where truth had finally wrestled its way into the light. The crates, once obstacles, now seem like silent witnesses. The air, still thick with dust, feels different, lighter. Redemption. It wasn't a sudden, blinding flash, but a quiet, steady warmth spreading through your veins. You hadn't recovered your badge, not yet. Perhaps you never would, not in the same way. But you had recovered something far more vital, your purpose. You think of the years spent in the wilderness, the self-recrimination, the gnawing regret. All of it had led you here, to this moment, to this precise, painful, yet ultimately liberating confrontation. You had walked through your own personal inferno and emerged, not unscathed, but forged anew. A faint smile touches your lips, a rare, unpracticed gesture. I don't know, you admit, the words feeling strangely freeing.
But I'm not done. Not by a long shot. The path ahead is uncertain, shrouded in mist, devoid of familiar landmarks. Instead, a quiet resolve settles in your heart. The fight for justice, you realize, is never truly over. It simply shifts, adapts, waits for those brave enough to answer its call. And you, Marcus Thorne, were ready to answer.